it's clear from all the evidence that's coming that the earth is collapsing. In the name of development, all the economic growth and everything, the sort of huge consumption of materials, the output of pollution, effluents, all of that is causing the entire earth system to collapse. We know that from all the different, flood somewhere, wildfire somewhere else, drought somewhere else, extreme heat, So if you actually take that into account, and then you also take the fact that more than 1 billion people are already being affected by the climate crisis, and if you add biodiversity and pollution and all that other things, it will be much larger and many more in the future. And what about what's happening to all the other species on Earth? I mean, we are actually causing the extinction of maybe millions of species. So what are we leaving for the future generations?
So, you talk about alternatives, you talk about present model of development, which is trashing the earth. Is a problem with us that are we cynics? Are we are non-conformists anyway? We are mavericks, you and I, and us. But are we looking at this? Seems to be finding resonance among the people. I mean, the reason governments are being voted across the world, the kind of governments who are proposing development. So why are we trying to push back?
So in that sense, what we're saying is that of course we need human needs to be met and human aspirations to be met. But what we want to show is that why this is wrong, this pathway is wrong, and the fact that there are alternatives. That's why the whole focus on Vikalpa, on alternatives, because there's no point just criticizing. We also want to show that, livelihoods can be food, energy, housing, everything can actually happen without causing these sorts of issues and problems and sort of inequalities and deprivations and all of that.
Should we get down to very specific examples, illustration?
Ladakh was first opened to tourism in 1974, and in that first year we had about 530 tourists visiting us, and today we get over 400,000 tourists, and that also in a short span of 4 to 5 months. So most of the income from that growing tourism was going to hoteliers, travel agents and taxis and all of that, and people in remote villages who were suffering a lot because of these livestock depredation and many other issues. When we went to some of these remote villages and asked them, what are you getting anything out of the growing tourism? They said, no, we don't get anything. We just see these people passing by and all we get is a pile of garbage at the end. One day, a woman in the Hemis National Park suggested that these trekkers and these tourists, so instead of camping, why not they stay with us in the homes? Otherwise, a group of some 20 trekkers would take some 10-15 horses to carry their camping gear. If people stay in the homes instead of camping, it will take away the pressure of these additional animals, the pack animals coming in from outside and grazing in these areas. And plus, benefits the wildlife and it benefits the people in terms of generating some income. And it also benefits the tourists because many tourists come to see the local culture, and there cannot be a better way of learning about local culture than staying with people and seeing how they live on a day-to-day basis.
गाँव में लाइफ बहुत अच्छा है जी। बाकी लोग को ये ज़्यादातर ये देखता है जी, जहाँ पे गाड़ी हो, जहाँ पे मार्केट हो, जहाँ पे ये हो, वो सब देखता है। ये गांव में नहीं देखता है। जैसे कि मार्केट में मिल गया ऑर्गेनिक है बोलता है ना जी, है कि नहीं क्या बताए? हमें इधर मिलता है ना, बिल्कुल यहाँ से जड़ से निकालो, ये ऑर्गेनिक है, हम लोग को देखा है, हम लोग खाता है ये, इसी को पूरा यहाँ से निकलता है, हमें अच्छा लगता है। हम लोग अगर हम लोग अभी नहीं संभालेगा तो तो जब दूसरे जनरेशन में भी नहीं संभलेगा फिर बिगड़ते बिगड़ते जाएगा जी। फिर ये सब आप कुछ सालों में तो ये सब देखने को भी नहीं मिलेगा, पता तो क्या होना है ना जी, बस ऐसे बिगड़ जाएगा।
I think Ladakh story is indicative of so many problems generally that we are facing with, say, large-scale farming. The mainstream dominant farming is talking about extraction. It is talking about how do you produce more and more with a very limited capacity of a land. And how you can have a very generalized way of farming which is not responding to the context or the ecology of the region.
So what we're trying to show, what the Ladakhi groups are trying to show, or elsewhere across the country, that with limited natural resources that we have, even limited rain, with our own seeds, with our own knowledge, we can actually have food security in our houses and still also surplus to sell in the market. No need for chemicals, no need for large scale irrigation, etc. Why create those problems when we can actually do with what we have?
कम्युनिटी नहीं तो कंजर्वेशन नहीं है। जब तक कम्युनिटी विलिंग नहीं होगा, चाहे हम जैसा हो, डिपार्टमेंट्स हो या जो भी एनजीओस हो, कितने भी मतलब जोर ज़बरदस्ती लगा लो, कंजर्वेशन अल्टीमेटली कम्युनिटी की राज में। तो हमारा मेन कोशिश ये रहा है कि कम्युनिटी को इस कंजर्वेशन में किस तरह से इन्वॉल्व करें, वो थोड़ा सा
कि अपना ये खेती से क्या क्या निकलता है, कैसे इसको संभालना है, कैसे खाना है, ये कितना अच्छा चीज़ है ना। अभी बच्चे लोग को ये देखता है, टीवी में थोड़ा फिल्म देखाओ, ये नेट में फेसबुक में ये सब देखाओ, वो सब थोड़ी देर के लिए अच्छा लगता है ना जी। तो बाहर एक दो आदमी आज घूमने के लिए आएगा तो उसको देखकर बहुत अच्छा लगता है, मैं भी घूमने के लिए जाएगा, मैं भी बाहर चला जाएगा, ये सब अच्छा है, ये है, वो है, सोचता है। मगर रियली हम लोग देखेगा तो यही सबसे अच्छा है।
I think it is also maybe indicative of how certain knowledges are prioritized or given importance or have more power over the other. So a farmer living in Ladakh or living in Maharashtra is not considered knowledgeable, is not a scientist, so to say. But from a lot of these examples, we know that farmers are very scientific. They are experimenting all the time and their experiment is their farmland. And so it's also about changing that notion about that knowledges are only produced in academic institutions or by people who are degree holders, but knowledges are also produced by practical experiences, by people living in the ground, people doing these practices, fisher folks and all of those guys. So it's also about celebrating the diversity and the idea that we all are knowledge holders and it should be respected.
So where does this fit into your legendary flower? What petal? Would this be social justice, economic democracy, cultural, ecological wisdom? What is the value?
We should actually draw the. You want to draw the flower? Yeah. Or yeah, use one of those. Let's suppose this is political transformation, which is where people are kind of saying, we hold power where we are. Second sphere would be social justice. Yeah, so this one is really all the both traditional and new inequalities and sort of how to transform them. Caste is another very, very important one, of course, casteism. But also things like ability, disability, many, many multiple things. The third sphere is economic justice. So you can think of economic justice, economic self-governance, self-reliance, localization for basic needs. So all of that is part of this, and also bringing back in some sense the sort of economy of caring and the relations of caring and sharing. Economy unfortunately has become everything about money. Who has more money is more powerful. But it was always also about how do we share things. The fourth sphere is about culture and knowledge. We have such an incredible diversity of languages, 780 living languages in India. All of this is important. And the fifth sphere, which probably should be at the base, is ecological wisdom and resilience. Without sustaining the earth, we're not going to be alive anyway. And it's the intersections between them which are really crucial.
But there are also values in between. So our connecting point is these values that connect all of these different very contextual examples together, because the dominant system is talking about extraction, development at all costs, whereas these examples are saying let's respect nature and its right. So it's really these different values but also a common set that comes together and forms the base or the center of this flower. at least what has emerged from our discussions through the Vikalp Sangam process.
So all the values you explained very well. And while you were talking, I was thinking of Kunaria. Where does Kunaria fit into your flower?
નમસ્કાર, મારું નામ ગરવા ભારતી છે અને હું કુનરિયા ગામની બાલિકા પંચાયતની સરપંચ છું. અગર કોઈ ગામને મોડેલ વિલેજ તરીકે જોવે છે તો રોડ, રસ્તા, લાઇટ, ગટરની વ્યવસ્થા છે તો એ ગામ છે એ મોડેલ વિલેજ છે. પરંતુ કુનરિયા ગામ બધા ગામથી થોડોક હટકે છે.
बालिका पंचायत, तो बालिका पंचायत एक 10 से 21 साल की जो लड़कियां हैं उनके लिए एक मुख्य पंचायत के अंडर में एक बालिका पंचायत बनाई जाएगी जो हूबहू मुख्य पंचायत का ही काम करेंगी, जिसमें गांव में जो कुछ भी 10 से 21 साल की जो लड़कियां हैं उन्हें आइडेंटिफाई करना है और उनके जो कुछ भी प्रश्न है, दिक्कतें हैं, वो बालिका पंचायत तक उनके सामने रखेगी और बालिका पंचायत की जो सरपंच है वो जो अपने बालिकाओं से प्रश्न और सवाल आए हैं वो मुख्य पंचायत तक लेके जाएगी.
पंचायत में 29 ऐसे सब्जेक्ट हैं जहाँ पर काम किया जा रहा है. पानी की बात हो, रोड रास्ता की बात हो, सफाई की बात हो, हेल्थ की बात हो, एजुकेशन की बात हो, तो इस सारे सब्जेक्ट पर जो है वो काम करना था. और इस दिशा में लोगों की साझेदारी भी ऐसे आए कि महिलाओं की साझेदारी आए, यूथ की साझेदारी आए, एल्डर्स की साझेदारी आए, एक्सपीरियंस पर्सन की भी साझेदारी आए और बच्चों की भी साझेदारी आए. तो हेल्थ, एजुकेशन, एम्प्लॉयमेंट हुआ, एनवायरनमेंट हुआ, ये सारे सब्जेक्ट जो हैं एक दूसरे से इंटरकनेक्टेड हैं और सब में काम करना इतना ही महत्वपूर्ण था. तो सब कामों को जोड़कर जो है लोगों को साथ लेकर पीपल्स पार्टिसिपेशन के साथ काम हुआ तो हम अच्छा रिजल्ट दे पाए.
તો બાલિકા પંચાયત જ્યારે બની છે તો એના શિક્ષણ ક્ષેત્રમાં ઘણો બધો સુધારો આવ્યો છે. ઘણી દીકરીઓ ડ્રોપ આઉટ થઈ જતી હતી, તો જે ડ્રોપ આઉટ થાય છે એ દીકરીઓને અમે બાલિકા પંચાયત અને મુખ્ય પંચાયત સાથે મળીને એ દીકરીઓના વાલી સાથે મુલાકાત કરી.
8મા ધોરણ પછી છોકરીઓ ઘણી બહાર ભણવા નથી જતી. તેના માટે અમે ઘરે ઘરે જઈ તેમના વાલીઓને સમજાવી છીએ કે દીકરીઓ પણ ભણે અને દીકરીઓ પણ આગળ વધે. એક જ દીકરાને જેટલો અધિકાર આગળ વધવાનું ભણવાનું છે એટલી જ દીકરીઓને છે. એના માટે અમે પ્રયાસો તમામ કરી રહ્યા છીએ કે દીકરી ભણે અને દીકરી સમજી શકે અને આગળ વધે.
ઘણી બધી જગ્યાએ આપણે જોયું છે કે મહિલાઓ માટે 50% અનામત છે, પરંતુ એ લોકો મતલબ એના પાસે સત્તા છે પણ શાસન એમના પતિ પિતા ભાઈ જ કરે છે. તો મનમાંથી એમ થાય કે મહિલાઓનું કંઈ વજૂદ જ નથી, મહિલાઓ માત્ર ઘરકામ જ કરશે, મહિલાઓ બાળકો સાચવશે, મહિલાઓ ખાલી રસોઈ કરી શકશે. શા માટે મહિલાઓ પાયલોટ ના બની શકે, શા માટે ડૉક્ટર ના બની શકે, શા માટે મહિલા કોઈ રમતવીર ના બની શકે?
So it's an intersection, actually it's a good example of intersecting of all the petals of the flower and the values in between. Why are we doing this? Because we feel the whole village needs to move up. We feel that the whole village should have a voice. We feel that young girls should have as much of a voice as men and boys, right? So there are values of equality, of solidarity, of justice, of working with the earth. All that comes into the core.
तो अब वो स्वतंत्रता है वो सिर्फ आर्थिक स्वतंत्रता तक सीमित नहीं है, लेकिन जो एक मन में जो गांठ बंधी हुई थी कि ऐसा काम महिलाएं नहीं कर पा रही हैं, तो गांठ खोलने का काम जो हमने किया है वो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है.
However, I mean, all the alternatives are fine. The movement seems very inspiring. Everything at the local level seems inspiring. But I'm just sharing my own personal experience. You go and speak to the policymakers. I have gone and spoken to the principal chief conservator of forests in Himachal, talking about Gaddi pastoralists. Now, you know, he actually gave us bites on the camera saying, these people, they are primitive people. They need to be brought into the mainstream, you know. Nowhere in the world is there nomadic pastoralism happening. This is a principal chief conservator of forest sitting there saying that these people don't know what's good for them. So I think the challenge remains, how do how do you push back?
जिला में तो ज़्यादा करके आदिवासी समुदाय है, इसमें गोंडी है, हमारे आदिवासी कंवर समुदाय है, भामरागढ़ अहेरी साइड में गए तो माड़िया वगैरह भी है, सारी समाज के हैं। लेकिन यहाँ आदिवासी बहुल क्षेत्र ज़्यादा है, पूरा यानी ज़्यादा संख्या आदिवासी लोगों का है। जो कायदा में भी लिखा है और हम भी मानते हैं कि आदिवासी समुदाय का संस्कृति भी जंगल से जुड़े है, हमारे परंपरा भी जंगल से जुड़े हैं। हमारे उपजीविका का जो साधन है तो खेती के बराबर से यानी जंगल है, जंगल से हमें ज़्यादा उत्पादन मिलता है।
अभी तक हमको वन हक्क का अधिकार नहीं मिलता तो पूरा जंगल नष्ट हुआ रहेगा, ये हमारा पक्का है। अभी तक नहीं मिलता ना, ये पूरा नष्ट हुआ है। तेंदू का हो या बाम्बू का हो या कुछ गौण वन उपज का हो, वो रॉयल्टी हमको मिलता है, इसलिए हमको रोजगार भी उपलब्ध होता है और ऊपर से रॉयल्टी भी मिलता है। वो पहले गवर्नमेंट को जाती थी, वो रॉयल्टी हमको आती है गांव वालों को, ग्राम सभी में।
सरकार जो भारी सरकार की जो स्वामित्व है
हमारे पास कायदे नहीं थे, हमारे पास दस्तावेज नहीं थे, तब हमको ऐसा लगता था ये जंगल हमारा नहीं, कैसे भी करेंगे लेकिन किसका जाएगा, फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट का जाएगा, हमारा क्या जाएगा।
गांव के को भी विकास वाले जो काम हैं, हमारे जात पंचायत की व्यवस्था है, जो बाहर से आ रहे हैं आकर्षित करने वाली चीज़ है, उसको कैसे हम दुर्लक्ष्य करना चाहिए। जो हमारे परंपरा में है, हमारे नियम में है, उसको कैसे टिका कर रखना है। तो इसका हम अभ्यास भी करते हैं, पढ़ते भी हैं, चर्चा भी करते हैं और कुछ करके देखते हैं।
Where does rebellion fit in? Where does activism fit in? Where does RA, the revolutionary song that we heard, where does that fit into this flower?
पद्धती आहेत ऐतिहासिक, या रानाचा मूळ निवासी, जीव आणतो पडसर मातीत, प्राण हिरवा माझा देव आहे वागोबा, प्रगती तुमच्या बाद आमच्या जंगलात न मागोबा।
हाँ तो सब आवाज आवाज आवाज। हम लोग यहाँ पे मुंबई में है, जहाँ पे गोरेगांव आर्य कॉलोनी बोलते हैं यहाँ पे, और ये कम से कम ये एरिया पूरा जंगल 3200 एकड़ का है। जंगल एक साइड होता है, सिटी अलग बाजू होती है, लेकिन ये सिटी के बीचों बीच जंगल है। यहाँ पे जंगल बचने का एक सबसे बड़ा कारण है कि यहाँ पे आदिवासी लोग रहते हैं, और जहाँ पर आदिवासी लोग रहते हैं ना, वो आसपास जंगल रखते ही है, उनको वो बचाते ही, फाइट ही करते हैं, क्योंकि जंगल के बगैर वो नहीं रह सकते।
हमें ना पसंद है खोटा विकास, ना है तुम जैसे चोरों पे विश्वास, मेट्रो बनाने उखाड़ो तुम झाड़, जब झाड़ ना बचेगे कैसे लोगे सांस, घर मेरा जंगल खुला आकाश, तुम आए
मैं ऐसा लिखा हूँ, पूरा वर्ड्स आप जब सुनोगे वार्ली रिवॉल्ट का, उसमें आई हैव बिकम प्रकाश वर्ड एंड ही इज़ रैपिंग थ्रू मी एंड द ट्रीज आर रैपिंग थ्रू मी, द बर्ड्स आर रिबेलिंग, सो वैसा सोच के मैं लिखा. आई केप्ट माई सेल्फ असाइड. यू सी एवरीवेयर इन इंडिया इट्स हैपनिंग. दे आर टेकिंग फॉरेस्ट लैंड, आदिवासियों की जगह लेके उनके कल्चर को डिस्ट्रॉय करके, कुछ वैल्यू नहीं देके. और वो एक आउट से एक पुकार है लोगों को, और वो एक रेसिस्ट करने के लिए एक दीवार है, कि मना करने के लिए कि हाँ यहाँ पे नहीं हो सकता ये चीज़.
और आदिवासी कहते हुए मुझे बहुत अभिमान होता है कि आदिवासी मतलब आदि से रहने वाले मूल निवासी यहाँ के, और उनकी एक सभ्यता है, उनके कल्चर है. ये वारली पेंटिंग खाली वारली पेंटिंग नहीं है, उसको वो हमें बहुत सारी एक पहचान देता है. जहाँ जिस घर में वारली पेंटिंग दिखेगी वो ऑटोमेटिकली लोग समझ जाते हैं हाँ ये लोग आदिवासी लोग हैं. तो अब एक चैलेंज ये है कि ये कैसे बचाया जाए.
नहीं डर लगता है, क्योंकि हम लोग सच्चाई से हम लोग झगड़ रहे हैं ना, हमारे हक के लिए, हमारे अधिकार के लिए, तो हम क्यों डरे.
देयर इज़ नो हाफ वे थिंग कि अभी इसको छोड़ दिया, एक गाना बनाया छोड़ दिया, अभी घर पे जाके सो जाओ. ऐसा नहीं है, कि मुद्दा तो चल ही रहा है ना. एंड आई नो दे आर स्ट्रॉन्गर, बट जब भी मैं सोता हूँ मैं एकदम खुशी और शांति से सोता हूँ. मैं ऐसे दिमाग में करप्शन के साथ नहीं सोता हूँ.
निसर्गाचे आम्ही सच्चे पुजारी आदिवासी आदिवासी आम्ही आदिवासी आम्ही आदिवासी
Sadly, in these times, talking about rebellion, activism, it just becomes such a controversial thing to speak. But it's very natural to us in this landscape, because we have resisted against powerful forces 76 years ago against the British, and it has always been part of our culture to rebel, to resist, and I think we should celebrate that rather than question it, which is what is happening in the current political environment. And it gives us hope, because until and unless we stand up for ourselves and for our fellow beings and for the rest of nature, and I think it's indicative of what makes us humans, that despite so much pressure of being very different, that movement shows that we don't want this development. Actually, we don't want metro coming to our places. We want to retain, even in this city, we want to retain this forest. So it's very indicative that it's not that you take development and people will like really accept it. People are resisting against it. So I think these movements are a powerful indication of that transformation and of that worldview.
This dominant view of what it means to be progressed and developed and etc. This thing that they are primitive kind of thing. This is a very dominant view. It's not just with the government, PCCF kind of stuff, but it's also upper middle class people who will say, "अरे पर वो तो पिछड़े हुए हैं, उनको तो हमारे जैसे बनाना है," kind of thing, right? So I think for us it's very important to be able to counter this, not to simply say that what you're doing is or saying is wrong. But to say, look, if people are, ultimately what do we want? We want happiness. We want to be satisfied. We want to have good social relations. We want to have good food. All of that, right? So that's what it is. It's not we want high economic growth. That doesn't mean anything at all, if people are still unhappy and poor and deprived and all of that. So what we are trying to do is to show, and for people to be able to articulate for themselves, that by continuing some of our old practices, maybe also bringing in some new practices. In fact, most of the successful examples we've seen are what we might call hybrid systems. So this narrative needs to be told much more, because young people are, unfortunately, because they don't have access to these sorts of narratives, they don't think these are possibilities. Most of them want to join the rat race. At some point they're likely to get disillusioned, but they think that's the sort of ideal, the glitzy ideal that we want to get. We have to be able to break that down.
When I say Marudam, the word itself means an ecosystem. The whole point where Marudam started was we want to really explore the joy of learning, and we wanted to do it like a community school where primarily there is a farming community which has lived here for generations. So the free play was a very vital part of school. Now the schooling has in many areas has over 5 years reduced the time of play, and they've increased the time with classroom books and with the internet and these kind of online after the online. Now that is very vital for children.
If you were to talk about the last 5 years, I would say COVID was a very important aspect for everybody, for the whole world, for us also. Except that for us it was a point of, what should we say, rebirth. And always as an education place, we had this thing of experiential learning, a connection to local ecosystems and cultures and so on and so forth. So we could lay greater emphasis on that. So we went out more into the field, distribute ourselves and do a lot of experiential learning projects. So for example, we did something called the Stream Project. Every Wednesday, about I think 2 classes, we went out and we would join some stream and either walk upstream or downstream, and either go to the source of the stream, which will be the hill, or go downstream to the place where it joins a water body. This way we mapped, I think we did it for the whole year, and we mapped all the streams and we understood the whole, the watershed of this entire locality. I mean, such a rich source of learning, it was phenomenal. So earlier, time in nature meant time in nature. You would go spend time in nature. Of course, you'd observe things and all that. But now it's time in nature with a purpose. And so this whole bonding to a re-emerging forest has gotten stronger. The last time you came, we have created a climate change curriculum. We are still working on it. It's for an older age group. So we are engaging with the whole aspect of climate change. But we are also doing something on the ground. So can you have an eye to the globe but act locally? Then there's a think globally, act locally. So we are a classic model of that. No, I see lots of people understanding this. There are always visitors saying we are disenchanted with the system, and some way or the other we are looking for meaning. And particularly ones who have gone through this grind of mainstream, schooling and all that, they don't want their children to have this. They said, we suffered, we don't want this for our children. So that way, I mean, there is hope.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great example of an alternative learning space. And fortunately now in India, more and more of these are coming up to show what education can really be about. Now, I just remembered the original meaning of the word school. The word comes from the Greek schole, which meant learning with leisure, which is the opposite of 90% of India's schools.
Learning by rote. Gudalur, we went to Gudalur and we saw wonderful honey collection and bottling happening. But what is the concept of sustainability that they've included in their entire model? What does the third chair mean? What does it allude to?
കാട്ടിനായ്ക്കെന്നു പറഞ്ഞാൽ കാട്ടിൽ ജീവിച്ച മനുഷ്യനാണ്. അവനക്കും കാടായിട്ട് ഭയങ്കര ബന്ധമുണ്ട്. കാട് അവൻ്റെ തന്നെ. കാട് വന്ന് നമുക്ക് സ്വന്തം കാട് മാതിരിയാണ്.
നമ്മുടെ ആൾക്കാർ കാട്ടിനേക്കാർ കാട്ടിനുള്ളിൽ പോയിട്ട് ഈ ആന പുലിൻ്റെ ശല്യത്തിലൊക്കെ തേൻ കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നത് ഭയങ്കര റിസ്കല്ലേ. അതൊക്കെ അങ്ങനെ ഓരോ വർഷത്തിൽ അങ്ങനെ റിസ്ക്കും കൂടി പോകുന്നുണ്ട്. ഫോറസ്റ്റുകാരൻ്റെ അവരുടെ ശല്യം, ആ റിസ്കിനുള്ള വില പൈസ കടയിൽ പുറത്തെ ആൾക്കാരുടെ അടുത്ത് കൊണ്ടുപോയി കൊടുക്കുമ്പോൾ അത് കിട്ടില്ല. ഈ സൊസൈറ്റി വന്ന ശേഷം സൊസൈറ്റി വന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരു നല്ലൊരു ഇതിൽ.
Almost 1.5 2 years now that we've started the third share concept, that the first share goes to the nature or to the forest, the second share goes to the tribals themselves, like let it be pepper or honey or coffee, they keep a small share for themselves, and the third share is what they're willing to give outside, so that the consumers can take and enjoy. And throughout the year, the kind of response we are getting from the consumer, who are just reading the backside of the product and understanding the story, and they're coming back and they want to know more. So yeah, that's been the journey of the third share so far.
ഞാൻ പുറത്ത് പണിയെടുക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ പണി മാത്രം എടുക്കും, പൈസ കിട്ടും. ആ പൈസ പുറത്ത് പോയി സിറ്റി സൈഡ് പണിയെടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ പൈസ കിട്ടും. അതേപോലെ അതിനുള്ള ചിലവും, കൂടുതൽ പൈസ കിട്ടിയാൽ കൂടുതൽ ചിലവും നടക്കും. ഇവിടെ വരുമ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയല്ലല്ലോ, നമ്മൾ സ്വന്തം എല്ലാവരും കൂടെ നമ്മൾ ബന്ധമായിട്ട് ഫാമിലി ആയിട്ട് വില്ലേജിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ പോകുമ്പം പണിയായിട്ട് മാത്രമല്ല എല്ലാവരും കൂടെ നല്ലൊരു കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷനിൽ നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ അതൊരു സന്തോഷം. കളക്ഷൻ പണിയെടുക്കും, പിന്നെ കോഫി, പെപ്പർ, ഹണി ഈ 3 കളക്ട് ചെയ്യും. ഇനി തേന്, കോഫി എടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് സീസണിൽ മാത്രമല്ല കിട്ടുന്നത്. പിന്നെ അങ്ങനെ വർഷം ഫുള്ളായിട്ട് എടുക്കാനുള്ള ഏതെങ്കിലും സാധനം ഉള്ളിൽ എടുക്കാൻ ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ടോ? സാധനം ഉണ്ട്, എടുക്കാനും പെർമിഷൻ ഇല്ലല്ലോ. പിന്നെ അതും കിട്ടണം. പിന്നെ അതേമാതിരി ആ സാധനം കൊണ്ടുവന്നിട്ട് പുറത്ത് സെയിൽ ചെയ്യാനുള്ള അത് ഐഡിയ. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ ട്രൈബൽസ് എങ്ങനെ ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്യാൻ അതിൻ്റെ ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ട്, അതിനുള്ള ഇതും കിട്ടുന്നുണ്ട്. എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനും മെയിൻ വേണം, സിറ്റി എക്സ്പീരിയൻസ് വേണം, എല്ലാം വേണം, എല്ലാവരും വേണം. പക്ഷെ നമ്മളെ കൾച്ചർ മറക്കാൻ പാടില്ല, അതാണ് മെയിൻ.
So when I actually order third share coffee, I am that third part, and I am conscious of the fact, and they also brand it, they sort of put the text in their products. I am conscious of the fact that I am actually contributing to the sustainability, the upkeep, the benefit of both nature, the rest of nature, and the local Adivasis. And we're trying to do something similar, by the way. There's sorry, I keep disappearing. So this honey, just got it a few days back, is from close to Pune, Bhima Shankar Wildlife Sanctuary, where Kalpavriksha is actually working in 6 villages. And they have, over the last few years, worked out how to harvest honey in a non-violent, sustainable way, so that the hive, this is rock bees, Apis cerana, I think. So the idea is, nature is being sustained. People have a stake in protecting the forest because they're getting not just honey but multiple different things out of it. And they're being able to consume themselves, but also sell some in the market. So they don't need big industries and all of that kind of stuff which the government is promising. They're saying, no, we're happy with what we have, and we're also linking to the modern market, but we're also sustaining ourselves and our forests.
मुझे सब दिख गया, कुनरिया दिख गया, लद्दाख दिख गया. Now हमारा where does Nagaland fit in here? Where does Chizami fit in here? Where does Northeast Network in this part?
People of Nagaland are mainly into subsistence agriculture. In that, more than 65% of women are into agriculture. Firstly, the kind of agriculture that is now dominating the world, that is not sustainable at all. In our villages, every household have that tradition of keeping our own seeds, but that was slowly decreasing. We also felt that with the climate change, the climate crisis that is very visible and that is impacting directly people who are dependent on land,
We also felt the need of working on indigenous seeds, working on diversity, and working on, like the common resources. Seeds is one. It should not be owned by one person. During the pandemic, COVID times, that's the time when people rush back to their villages. That's the time when people started, like going back to their farms. People who are in the cities, in the urban areas, even they have money, they cannot really buy food. So, during pandemic, they came back to their land. So that was one thing. I mean, that's the time when people started saying, oh, that's exactly what you were trying to tell us.
So there is that aspect of economic livelihoods also, which is linked to that, which also includes crafts. Reviving the traditional crafts, the weaving and the sort of fantastic Naga shawl making and all of that kind of stuff. So it's again kind of intersectional.
In 2008, why we started this weaving program is a lot of women, they have a skill, but they don't have a regular earning opportunity. So why not we start weaving program in our area?
It started as a Nan's livelihood initiative. Initially, yes, we were very clear about our, objectives of the program as to how we want to see the, promotion of this traditional textiles, and at the same time instilling a sense of, understanding of gender justice issues as well. So that is how we started. We did not see that it will grow like this big.
Weaving is like traditional, and every household it's always passed on the traditional to the daughters, and also it's traditionally mother passed on to the daughters. So every girls in olden times, every girls, we have to know the weaving skills. Unless we don't know the skills and farming work or whatever it is like we are considered to be like a bad woman or useless woman like that. So at that time it was like that.
I think one more petal explanation to just add quickly is about knowledge also, because it's a lot of crafts knowledge, working with the land. It's in their practices, because they believe that a lot of what a Naga person is expressed through our craft. It's expressed through our way of growing food, and so that also needs to come out. And it's very much a way of self-assertion. A lot of crafts motifs actually have how people relate with the rest of nature. So it's also about those expressions, those worldviews that need to be celebrated.
Like beginning, like we were, myself and even the weavers, I used to hear from the weavers, so we couldn't sleep all night. Also, we will be dreaming with designs and all, and color combinations, like, because we are not used to drawing and developing a soft copy, so we always imagine from our mind. So all night also we can dream.
I also care very much about justice, care very much about equity issues, and that is why that has really driven me, till date to work with our community of women. But this should not end there. We do hope that there will be many more such, models being replicated in other parts of the state and elsewhere.
And for us, actually, it's also very important to realize that India cannot do this alone. These transformations that we need have to be global, because we are in a globalized world. And so one of the things that's initiated because of Vikalp Sangam here is a global platform called the Global Tapestry of Alternatives, where we're similar to Vikalp Sangam here. There's Crianza Mutua in Mexico and Colombia, there's Masa in Southeast Asia, there's multiple other commons movements, all kinds of movements across the world, trying to bring them together on a common platform, again to learn from each other and then create a critical mass for the global macro changes that are also necessary.
Yeah, but now why are we doing these films? Why are we doing this series of films for the last few years? What is the rationale? What difference does it make to whom?
So one is that we want these stories of people on the ground to come out, and they get out, people know about these stories, because mainstream media is not showing this. There's no other way that these stories come out, these stories of inspiration, hope, of doing things differently. So one idea and objective is to talk about these stories. and to also tell that it is not just that things have gone wrong, but there are many examples where things have gone right and people are doing it in different ways, and there will be interesting lessons that we all can learn from.
सिर्फ कुमुद एरिया तक सीमित रहा, आप जानते हैं आसपास के गांव में भी उसकी जो है वो महक है पहुंचने लगी है। आसपास के गांव में भी लोग अब महिलाओं को इस रूप में आदर दे रहे हैं या देख रहे हैं कि अब महिलाएं जाकर अपना व्यवसाय कर सकती हैं, महिलाएं बाहर जा सकती हैं।
The small work, little work that we do in different parts of the world, creating alternative spaces, which is challenging the dominant forces, control of mass production. That's the hope.
I mean, these things always will be a countercurrent. I think the voice of reason and sense and wisdom has never prevailed, never existed in the world mass scale, you know. There'll be a counter voice, and that voice being there is important. And someday it may catch fire and more people may take on.
And then at some point also think about, okay, what are our visions? Let's dream also, because dreaming is something that has completely gone out of our present living. So also to sit together and dream of what better worlds do we want, what better societies do we want, how do we create institutions and spaces in different ways.